Let's talk to Isabel Oakeshott, Talk's international editor. Isabel, very good morning to you.
Morning. The other thing that they do, this young generation, is that they regularly have naps in the middle of the day, like they're old people.
Right.
I've noticed this a lot. You know, they just take themselves off to bed for a few hours. As for that recruiter, I mean, I'm so glad that they just terminated the interview. We don't have to put up with this. You know, we slightly older people or very older people still hold quite a lot of the cards, you know. They're the cards known as the ability to employ people, and we can pick and choose. We can exercise our right not to employ layabouts who take phone calls during interviews.
I know, absolutely staggering. But I wonder who's telling them all this stuff. I mean, who's giving them any advice? Who's giving them... you know, they must have parents who didn't tell them this is what you shouldn't do in an interview.
I think that's absolutely right. But here's the good news. If you actually just do a few basic things, you can stand out from the crowd by a mile. I mean, I'm continually boring my own kids to death about the number one thing you have to do for success, which is show up when you say you're going to show up. Now, if you do that in many, many lines of work, you're already 100% ahead of most of the competition.
Totally, absolutely, so true. Incredible, isn't it? Front page of the Telegraph this morning has got David Lammy's name on it. UK missiles are vital to stop Putin. He's talking about a winter of defeat looming for Kiev without the storm shadows. I'm slightly worried that David Lammy is so far out of his depth in this job that he's going to say something stupid that so far Vladimir Putin hasn't reacted to, but he might.
I think that's entirely possible. I mean, what a muppet getting off that plane with his trainers on.
No.
I loved your call saying, you know, he's it should be a surefire win for the plank of the week, looking like that, representing our nation. I mean, those shoes are fair enough if no one's watching you, but on a big official visit, I don't think they're acceptable unless he's got some kind of foot injury that he's told us about.
He keeps putting his foot in his mouth. I think that's the foot injury he's got.
Yeah, quite. I mean, the stakes are as high as ever, and it always is the case. And it does feel like, you know, Groundhog Day as we head into more difficult weather conditions. You head into the winter of this never-ending war. That, you know, Ukraine is. It's not winning, is it, yet? But neither is it losing. And there's a real danger with a potential change of the administration in the US as far as the Ukrainians are concerned, that if there's a Trump victory, then they will find things an awful lot harder. We heard in that debate earlier this week with Kamala Harris, President Trump repeatedly indicating that he would claw back on funding for this mission. So undoubtedly, the leadership in Ukraine, Zelensky, will be getting increasingly nervous as these weeks go by.
Absolutely right. And I mean, one of the things that his visit to the US has highlighted is that David Lammy is involved in two-tier diplomacy, because on the one hand, he wants to help Ukraine win the war, and he's willing to do almost anything and continue to fund it for the rest of time. He said that when he was in Ukraine. He's just awarded them another £600 million. But when it comes to Israel, one of our staunchest allies, he won't enable Israel to help them win the war. In fact, he will stymie them from being able to use some of the things that they would like to buy from us in order to beat Hamas into submission. And, you know, he would also like to have Benjamin Netanyahu, the, you know, democratically elected leader of Israel, arrested on war crimes.
Yeah, because he's in hock to the hard left of his party. I mean, he is of that wing. I mean, he's never been an impressive politician. You know, he's always been sort of second or third rate, really, at best. And I don't mean that in a kind of uncharitable way. It's just a fact that he has never been top draw. And I do know that in the run-up to winning the election, he did spend a lot of time quietly, you know, putting in the hard yards, trying to build up networks, trying to, you know, make the connections that he was going to need in the role, which is more than can be said for some cabinet ministers, you know, namely Yvette Cooper, who failed to put in the hard yards to ensure that there would actually be a boss of her new border force. So he did do some of the hard work before getting into this role. But somehow he's just not carrying any gravitas, is he? So it remains to be seen. Can he somehow suddenly begin to impress us all, I'm a little bit sceptical.
Yes, I think so. Let's talk about a few of the other more domestic stories this morning. Low-skilled migrants cost the public £150,000 each. You and I have been talking about this for a very long time. The cumulative bill rises to that figure by the time they can claim the state pension aged 66. I mean, I think a lot of people will be shocked at the idea that so many of these illegal migrants are coming in not only with the view to taking benefits while they're here, but also claiming a state pension. I mean, you know, this country has become a laughingstock, in my view, around the world, hasn't it?
Well, let's just dwell on that figure for a minute. £150,000 is the net cost to the British economy of low-skilled, and that also means unskilled, immigrants. Now, why is this so important? Because the organisation that has come up with this figure is the OBR, the Office for Budget Responsibility. It's not Nigel Farage, it's not Richard Tice, it's not some anti-immigration think tank. This is the OBR that is confirming what, frankly, all of us could pretty much have guessed, which is that if you flood a country with people who then basically earn a living as Deliveroo and Uber Eats drivers while living at the expense of the state, that is not a net benefit for the rest of the population. But the thing is, here's the thing, we have been gaslit by successive governments, gaslit for year after year after year. 25 years we've had of this since the Blair days, that mass immigration is good for the country. And here is the absolute proof that it is not. And I think it's going to have the lefties in a complete tailspin, because they can't argue with the OBR. They can't say, oh, this is racism, this is Farage. This is the OBR, and they're saying it as it is. It costs the taxpayer to bring in these people who don't actually have anything mega to contribute to our society.
Exactly. And they've also had a bit of a bad week, haven't they, the old, you know, we love all migrants, welcome refugees crowd, because Germany has suddenly turned up the heat and gone, do you know what? This whole Schengen agreement about freedom of movement across all borders in Europe is a bit of a bad idea. So we're going to close our borders now, and we're going to start rejecting people that come here who shouldn't be here.
So this starts from Monday, and this has been done with such kind of cool, Germanic, quiet, calm and efficiency. They're not shouting about it, and why would they? Why would they? After all, Germany is one of the key architects of the EU's ever closer integration plan, of which free movement of people is an integral part. And here they are, finally holding up their hands and saying, oops, actually, we've just realised that in an age of mass global movement of people, it's not that bright to have no borders, because what happens is you get completely overrun. And that's what's happened with Germany. It has had devastating consequences for the German economy and for German society. The fracturing of society, the rocketing crime by illegal immigrants has left Germany in a very, very perilous place, with the rise of the genuine far-right AfD as a result. And so the government is basically doing what it has to do to restore order.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, I've been saying this all week, but it's been kind of amusing to me. It's given me quite a wry smile that ever since Keir Starmer visited Olaf Scholz, the sort of centre-left Chancellor of Germany, the place has lurched massively to the right. They've started deporting Afghanistan criminals that belong there rather than belong in Germany. They've had those votes to the right, and they've also now shut their borders. Let's talk a bit about Keir Starmer here back at home, though. A lot of talk this morning in the papers of a nanny state. And, you know, the NHS can only be fixed if we fix ourselves, you know. So stop eating hamburgers, you know, stop going down the pub, stop drinking a bottle of wine a night to drown your sorrows, and we'll all be a lot better off.
Well, I tell you what would really help. Instead of focusing on tinkering around at the edges. So he's got these ideas like, let's ban junk food advertising, you know, at any hours of the day. How about we start tackling the whole Uber Eats, Deliveroo culture of all these lazy people who are just sitting around waiting for poorer people to bring them bad food, sit on the sofa. This is an absolute cancer on our society, because not only is it fueling the obesity crisis, and it absolutely is, as people around waiting for things to come to them rather than actually get off their backsides and go out to the shops. It's also fueling illegal immigration because so many of those drivers do not have the right to be working here. So how about they tackle the difficult things like that rather than just say, oh, we're just going to ban a few adverts, as if that's going to make any difference.
Kids don't watch television anyway.
No, they certainly don't. What they do is they get on their smartphones and order McDonald's. Right. A whole generation. These are teenagers that are using Uber Eats and Deliveroo and the other platforms. This is a whole generational thing now. I see it, in my kids of mine, in my own family, they're all at it, and it's just a scourge.
It really is. Now, I know you noticed the piece on the front page of the Mail, Charlie Mullins, the former founder of Pimlico Plumbers, saying he's quitting Britain. I'm delighted to say that actually they followed us on that because we interviewed him earlier this week. Have a look at this clip.
But I just don't like the idea of what Labour are doing, they're going to increase capital gains to 40%. I'm saying they're going to increase, so they're possibly going to increase inheritance tax. So I'm selling my property on that basis. Why would I want to give 50% of something I worked hard for to the Labour Party? The Starmer has become the new Robin Hood, but he's robbing everybody to feed the migrants. People are saying that, I'm jumping ship and I'm running away. I'm not running away from anything. I paid into the system for 55 years. I've parted with over 100 million into the government with all the taxes, national insurance. I've employed like thousands of people. I've trained 1,500 apprentices. I've done quite a bit for charity. So it's not a case of not being patriotic. It's a case of enough is enough. And, I feel that he's just, abusing the situation with everybody, if I'm being honest.
And Charlie Mullins, a lot of people have a view of Charlie Mullins. I like Charlie Mullins. I think he's a credit to this country, and the fact that he's leaving to go and live in Spain permanently and is going to deprive the Exchequer of quite a lot of tax money, actually, is a bit of a tragedy.
Oh, absolutely. I think Charlie Mullins is an incredible entrepreneur. His company was a brilliant thing. And he has, as he points out, and this was a great talk, Scoop, so well done with that one. As he points out in his follow-up article in the Daily Mail, he has paid vast sums of tax over the years to the UK, which he never resented. He's very clear about that. He's always been happy to pay his fair share. But there comes a tipping point, and we are at that tipping point. He says, I'm an absolute patriot. I love my country. Every day I wake up and look over the Thames and, I'm paraphrasing here, think, lucky me. But it's just got to a point of too much. And he's thinking about inheritance tax and his children, and he just sees a future in which he and his family are just going to be hammered for everything that they've achieved. And that is deeply worrying. And people may not be surprised. Someone at his end of the wealth scale is leaving the country. What I think we need to be equally worried about is a number of people further down the scale, the high middle earners that are just getting out, and not a day goes past that I don't hear of someone else who wants to get out, is trying to get out, is thinking of getting out of the UK. These are not millionaires we're talking about. I mean, many of those left quite a while ago. Right. Are people who are aspirational, young people in particular, who just don't see a bright future in a very, very hard socialist Britain. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Good to talk to you, Isabel. Thanks very much indeed. Isabel Oakeshott talks international editor